Tonight, calls for the province's Minister of Indigenous Affairs to step down, and that's not all.
This Kemen Terrace street will soon be filled with construction noise, and it's all got to do with a new school announced for the neighborhood. I'll have all the details coming up.
After years of turmoil and division, the town of Wabana appears to be on a roll. We're talking big budget surpluses, a plan to finally deliver clean drinking water to residents. There's a youth movement inside the town hall.
I think with the new approach of being inclusive and transparent, people are buying into that new energy.
Definitely more hopeful than I have in the past.
We'll bring you that story coming up.
Hotels instead of homes, what an access to information request tells us about the housing crisis and what the provincial government is doing to fix it.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening, and welcome to Here and Now. We'll get to those stories shortly, but first, our top story tonight takes us to southern Labrador, where people are waiting for a historic visit from the Premier. Here and Now's Mark Quinn is there.
I'm in Cartwright, where Premier Andrew Furey is expected to apologize to residential school survivors tomorrow. Of course, this apology has been a long time coming. Officials say it was difficult to organize. They say the groups involved have been difficult to agree on a time and a place and a ceremony. So here we are, almost 6 years later, and we're still waiting for that apology. Now it looks like some of the people who went to residential schools who are members of Nunatuavut will get an apology tomorrow. And that's upsetting some Indigenous groups. They say there should be an apology for all members of Newfoundland and Labrador's residential school survivor group, and they say Nunatuavut isn't a recognized Indigenous group. Many people hope that tomorrow people can put politics aside and focus on the apology and the people getting that apology. Leaders here say that apology could be valuable to help people heal. The ceremony here won't be as large as the ceremony in Happy Valley Goose Bay in 2017, but people here say it could be every bit as emotional. Mark Quinn, CBC News, Cartwright, Labrador.
Well, Edna Hamel's mother is one of those survivors. She was forced to attend the Lockwood School in Cartwright. Hamel says her mother's experience there left her haunted.
She showed me some of her scars that she had, and she had taken to the grave with her. She told me of how she was abused physically, emotionally, sexually, and traumatized. And the story goes on. It's just very hard for her to deal with it. And I knew that when she would cry and tell me the story.
Well, Hamel won't be attending tomorrow's apology in person. She lives in Lewisport and says the timing of the announcement just days before the event didn't leave her enough time to prepare for the trip.
So bad as I wanted to be there and to ask the Premier, you know, I've been wanting to talk to Andrew Furey a long time about this, and I would have been able to question him what I wanted to hear and what I wanted to say, but it's not going to happen. Well,
meantime, Premier Andrew Furey is defending his decision to apologize first to residential school survivors who are part of Nunatuavut. Two Indigenous governments in Labrador are leveling heavy criticism at Furey over how the apology is happening. But as Here and Now's Heather Gillis reports, the Premier says more apologies are in the works.
I, as Premier, am trying to do what's right for anyone who's attended a residential school, regardless of what Indigenous group you belong to.
Premier Andrew Furey is standing firm in the face of criticism from two Indigenous governments in Labrador. Nunatuavut and the Innu Nation slammed his plan to apologize to Nunatuavut residential school survivors tomorrow, a group whose Indigenous identity they don't recognize. Both groups want the province's Indigenous Affairs and Reconciliation Minister, Lisa Dempster, to be removed because she's a member of Nunatuavut.
If the Premier is serious about us, then he would have responded out later and deal with this cabinet member who's a conflict of interest. We're still waiting.
But Furey says the Minister of Indigenous Affairs is not going anywhere.
I have full confidence in all my cabinet.
The Premier says this apology all comes down to timing and availability. Nunatuavut was ready and scheduled first. Fury is promising more apologies soon, starting with survivors from Nunatsiavut.
As I understand it, the language has been finally finalized within the last 24 hours. And so now we are working towards dates.
But I tell you, this is so emotional.
Todd Russell is the president of the Nunatuavut Community Council, which says it represents about 6,000 Inuit from southern and central Labrador. He says arguments over their identity aren't new and are causing additional hurt and division.
From what I can gather, it comes from a deep place of fear, of a sense that somehow that when Nunatuavut Inuit move forward in our journey, that somehow that minimizes or takes something away from others. And that's just not the case, that we can all move forward together, that there is a better way than one group condemning another group in such a, I would say, violent and certainly profoundly misleading way.
The Premier says each Indigenous group will craft the wording of their own apology. And Fury says it wouldn't be right to do it all at once and ask one group to write messages of apology on behalf of all. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
In a news release responding to Andrew Fury's comments today, the Nunatsiavut government says, quote, "How is an apology to Inuit survivors and their families an act of reconciliation if we must draft the words for the government ourselves?" And went on to say this is an utter display of disrespect and shows how far this government is from reconciliation. Well, in other news, students in the Kenmount Terrace area of St. John's will soon have their very own school. The province shared the details at a neighborhood event earlier today. Here now's Henrika Wilhelm has the details.
A new school located in the heart of Kenmount Terrace.
Through Budget 2023, we announced $127 million to improve educational infrastructure, a portion of which will be dedicated to building a new school right here in Kenmount Terrace.
A growing community.
It's just grown so fast, and I think if you don't come up here, you have no idea how big it is. It's bigger than Lewisport. Every time I drive up around, there's a new street with more houses.
The growth is a trend that's now visible across the province.
For another consecutive year, after 50 years of straight decline, Newfoundland and Labrador's student population is growing, with enrollment this year expected to reach 64,000 students.
Details on the new facility are still sparse. Construction will happen over the next 4 years, with a preliminary opening date of September 2026. Whether the new school will replace Loch Hall Academy and which grades will be offered are not finalized yet, says Education Minister Crystalline Howell. For now, the plan is for a primary elementary school.
The needs of the community have dictated that. Once we look at the growth that's occurring here in Kenmount Terrace and see the numbers that are rising here, that is the primary group that we're looking to capture, the primary and elementary group. And as we said, you know, there's been such engagement with the community that we want to continue that to make sure that we get something that meets the needs of the area.
But before any construction tools are put to action right here, residents will get a chance to say which grades this new school in Kenmount Terrace should be offering. Meanwhile, there are still no promises for a new high school in Paradise, but Premier Fury said conversations about it are ongoing. Henrike Wilhelm, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, a woman on Newfoundland's west coast is taking her protest against a planned wind-to-hydrogen mega project on the road. Brenda Kitchen is driving a colorful bus to draw attention to her protest against World Energy GH2's plans. She wants the province to hold off on the environmental assessment process and provide meaningful consultation on how the wind turbine project could affect the environment and the water supply on the island's southwest coast. She even printed off 4,000 pages of environmental impact documents to show the public. Kitchen, her bus, and all the signs are heading to St. John's for the next 2 weeks.
We should have the brakes on immediately. We have a 4,000-page document in a whole different language that Newfoundland and Labrador is not used to. But wind turbines, hydrogen ammonia plants. We've all had to become wind energy experts because our government has not been there for us to help us through this process. So yes, 100%, we need a pause. We're not stopping the project. We just need to slow things down. It's too big and it's too fast.
Well, the woman accused of killing her ex-partner in the middle of a residential street in St. John's is pleading guilty. 30-year-old Lorraine Obed was arrested more than 2 years ago after allegedly stabbing 49-year-old James Corcoran in the Carters Hill area of the city. The killing shocked residents of the neighborhood. Corcoran died at the scene. Obed appeared in Supreme Court today, where her lawyer said she would accept a plea deal. The move will cancel a planned jury trial. For years, the town of Wabana on Bell Island has been gripped by turmoil and division. There are still big challenges ahead, but lately there's a youth movement inside the town hall that's bringing a cascade of positivity and a plan to end the area's contaminated water crisis. Here Now's Terry Roberts reports.
This has long been the reality on Bell Island, lining up for clean water at a dispensing station, and residents don't like it.
It's awful. You shouldn't have to do this.
I got heart trouble. I'm at 4 strokes, and I got to come up in a string and try to get water. And it's not right.
80% of the time, the water is dirty.
The water supply here is contaminated. Arsenic, manganese, iron, all flowing through aging pipes, sometimes producing water the color of engine oil. A boil order has been in place for 22 years, a legacy of the town's mining history. Locals say it's the #1 challenge to living on the island, that it's driving people away, impeding economic growth.
Behind me here, we have what I call the future.
But there's a plan to change all that. This new $3 million plant is expected to start treating water in the coming weeks, meaning about 15% of the nearly 1,200 homes in Wabana will soon have the boil order lifted, with more to come.
You know, we're hoping within 3 years that this entire community will receive this from their taps and no more of this.
It's nice to have nice clean water to drink it.
The clean water strategy is not the only positive news flowing from the town hall these days. Many residents associate this place with infighting, secrecy, poor decision-making that has cost the town big bucks over the years. But now, Wabana appears to be on a roll, and many people are crediting these two, perhaps the youngest town manager, town clerk combo in the province. They have deep roots here, and they're not much older than the boil water order itself. Until a year and a half ago, he was a town councillor, elected at age 20, strong communicator, confident, a millennial with political aspirations. So when the top administrative job opened up, he went for it and was hired.
Well, someone needs to calm the waters.
And he means that quite literally. Water is his top priority, and he's embarrassed it's gone on for so long.
I want this so bad. I mean, for 22 years, people have failed, councils have failed. I'm not going to fail.
Jordan Blackwood is not your typical stay-in-the-shadows municipal administrator. He's all over Facebook boasting about the town's achievements. He even grants interviews to reporters like me without so much as I better check with council first. And he's under 30. Water is life, but so is health care, and there hasn't been a family doctor on the island for years. So in another bold move, the town is acquiring this house, $1 from the Housing Corporation, to be used as a recruiting incentive. Big renovations are needed, but money is no object, says Blackwood.
We are in dire needs of a family physician, and we're going to do what it takes to attract a family physician. If that means giving a free home for their time here, we'll do it.
And these days, if the earth is moving on Bell Island, this town-owned digger is likely responsible. A $100,000 investment that was much needed, says Blackwood.
The work that this can do, in the time frame it can do, will save the taxpayers thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
Wabana had a remarkable $400,000 surplus last year on a budget of $2.5 million. How? Lots of Blackwood belt tightening and a municipal workforce that has shrunk from 11 to 9.
I mean, I treat these finances like they were my own.
And residents are taking notice.
Definitely more hopeful than I have in the past, and grateful that there is a young energy coming in.
Town Councillor Henry Crane made the motion to hire Blackwood, says the new town manager has the full support of council and that he's doing a good job. The town clerk agrees.
It's been absolutely astounding to see the change from when I started in 2019.
These two grew up here, and now they're helping forge the town's future together. Terry Roberts, CBC News, Wabana.
Well, it's nice blue sky again today. The reason for that, a ridge of high pressure to our west. And as you can see, not a whole lot happening. All the cloud cover really towards the coast or offshore at the moment. But these clear skies tonight that are happening across the island are going to lead to a cool night tonight. So a frost advisory is in place for the west coast, all the way through central and all of eastern Newfoundland is under that frost advisory. So we're expecting those temperatures to dip, maybe even below zero tonight. So if you do have frost sensitive plants, you are certainly going to want to cover them up. As far as the air quality goes, much better today. Maybe just a little hazy out there for the most part, but the smoke, you can no longer smell it. For now, things are going to change as we head through the weekend. But if you take a look, a live shot out, you can see just a little bit of hazy skies around Paddy's Pond, but that's about it. But like I said, that will return as we head through the weekend. I will get into all the details when I come back.
Tonight, we have new information on how the provincial government is spending money to address the housing crisis. An access to information request shows the province has funneled millions of dollars into hotels and other private businesses. Cash is flowing to dozens of communities to give people a place to stay, and that spending sheds new light on the severity and scope of the homelessness crisis. Ariana Kelland reports.
Quinton Rumboldt's homelessness is hidden behind the walls of this hotel.
I've never had to live anything like this. From what I can gather on classifieds, you're looking at $1,000 for a one-bedroom plus pay your own utilities, and that's the cheapest you're going to find anything.
Rumboldt has been staying here since June, waiting on a call for a housing unit. He estimates there are 30 others here in the same boat, the majority of them seniors. In a year, the provincial government has spent over $200,000 at Hotel Cornerbrook. The money doesn't just go here, but in every corner of the province, from cities to tiny communities, hotels, and for-profit shelter operators, for a total of over $5.2 million. By comparison, just a handful of shelters and one hotel was used before the pandemic, all in St. John's.
It's not easy. You don't have any cooked meals. We get $75 a week for groceries, which doesn't last a week. And we have to call in each week to get an extension to stay there for the next week.
There's no kitchen, no microwave, and Rumboldt says no other choice. He says his attempts to get out of homelessness and get employment are hampered by corporation policies because he spends much of his time on the phone, asking for extensions and looking for a permanent place to stay.
Not one person has been given a place to live since I've been here 4 months. Just more people keep getting packed in every week. So whatever's happening is happening somewhere else in the province. It's not happening on the West Coast.
In St. John's, Carrie Lynn Stanley would like a hotel room.
It's hard. People look at you like you're nothing.
Just down Water Street is where Stanley and her partner have been living. Tarps, rocks, and blankets make up her home, on the back of a former fine dining restaurant.
I've been on there less than over a year. They said as soon as the spot comes available, they're going to let me know. But every time I call, like they're telling me to do, oh, we're still waiting.
frustration mounts as vacant housing units sit longer. According to numbers from the Housing Corporation, there were 802 corporation-owned rental units in Corner Brook this March. Of those units, 53 were listed as vacant and unavailable to rent.
Actually do something. Stop spending money on telling us what you're doing. We don't need a billboard put up every junction of every little development. Spend money where it needs to go.
Newfoundland and Labrador Housing says it's doing just that. Paul Pike is the minister responsible for housing. We were told he was unavailable for an interview and didn't take reporters' questions after a housing-related news conference yesterday. But in a statement, the Housing Corporation says the entire country is grappling with this crisis. It says that it's building new homes, opening up shelter beds, and is incentivizing the private market to build affordable rental properties. Ariana Kelland, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, there's just not enough affordable housing. We're seeing it in towns and communities across the province, and Bonavista is no different. There was a meeting there last night to address the housing crisis. Here Now's Troy Turner was there.
The shoreline around Bonavista is harsh, and the rough seas are unforgiving. But it's not just waves that are crashing the town. A surging housing crisis is making life difficult for many.
It's either face homelessness or take a one-bedroom and just make it work, which is $900 and something a month for the one-bedroom.
April Sinnert is a widow from Bonavista. She has 4 kids, aged 12 and under, and she has to leave her current home in a couple of weeks.
I have to put a roof over their head. Like, that's my sole responsibility, and I can't do that. So to me, I'm failing as a mother. They just lost their dad a year ago.
A meeting on housing last night attracted about 30 people, representing many different sectors and demographics, all with their own ideas on how to rectify the housing crisis.
We want people to come and live here and stay here. And yes, it's fine that the tourists are here and it's great. They're, like Bonavista, blows up in the summertime with tourism. But there has to be a balance. You can't have all tourism when you got people who don't have somewhere to live.
They're hoping to find creative ways to get those in need into affordable homes.
We've got a lot of people in this area, in this peninsula, to find it very difficult to stay in their own homes because of the cost of living. It's not rent. It's just the fact that they feel like they can't stay here in their own homes because they can't make ends meet. Everything that comes forward for housing initiatives is got to be looked at closely, and we've got to bring it out to the people in that and say, here's what we're trying to do. Because right now, there isn't a plan.
Being in the town, I found a lot of people were saying they didn't have a place to live, they can't afford where they live, it's not adequate where they live.
For Sinnert, time is running out. She doesn't want to leave her hometown for the sake of her kids, but she doesn't have many options.
I'm just hoping that people, I don't know how to put it into words. If people would just look at the outcome of what people have to go through and just sit back and think about it. Like, would you want your family to be out on the streets with their kids? No.
The next step for the Status of Women's Council and the Saltwater Community Association, organizers of this event, is to bring people and municipalities together in the future to find ways to collaborate and help fix this housing crisis. Troy Turner, CBC News, Bonavista.
Well, you're looking at a live shot from the Trail of the Caribou Park in downtown St. John's. Tonight, the Premier and other representatives from Turkey are unveiling a new monument built in memory of the 85,000 Turkish soldiers who died in the 8-month Battle of Gallipoli during the First World War. The bronze statue is similar to one that was unveiled in Turkey earlier this year and is meant to symbolize the bond between both countries.
Bayan Eleanor Gill Ratcliffe ve Bayan Susan Paterne projeye verdikleri cömert desteklerinden dolayı özellikle teşekkür etmek isterim.
Well, certainly nice evening for it. Temperatures are dropping. In fact, frost advisory in place for tonight. We'll talk about that when I come back.
This weather update is brought to you by Steamatic Canada, the undisputed choice in restoration. Don't panic. Call Steamatic.
Time for a look at the weather, and Ashley, it was another beautiful day in St. John's.
Yes, it was. Less hazy than it has been for the past couple of days. Finally, some blue sky out there. That was the story pretty much across the province. And if we take a look at the temperatures out there, 14 degrees in St. John's this afternoon. Port aux Basques, 20 degrees. Burgeo, the hotspot, at 21. So we're definitely seeing some summer weather out there still, that's for sure. 20 degrees in Happy Valley Goose Bay today as well. And your temperatures across the Big Land, somewhere between 13 and 20 degrees today. So still looking fairly nice. We saw a lot more sunshine today, most of the clouds staying offshore. But we do have a big ridge of high pressure, and that is dominating the weather and will continue to dominate the weather over the next couple of days. So it actually looks pretty nice. Now, much less smoky today, but as we head through the next couple of days, that is going to change. Environment Canada has dropped the special air quality statement, and that's because we're not seeing any of that smoke really make it to the surface at the moment. It's all in the upper levels, and if you are seeing it at all, it's just in the way of some hazy skies. I don't know if you saw the moon last night, but it was beautiful as far as that is concerned. But otherwise, we are going to see the wildfire smoke move back in tonight as we look towards Labrador. So you'll see some hazy skies through the overnight. We should stay relatively clear tomorrow as far as that sunshine is concerned, but we may see some hazy skies across the island. Now up across Labrador, you'll likely start to smell the smoke as some of this will make it to the surface. At least it looks like it will at this point. And then into Saturday, same thing up across Labrador, some more hazy skies expected across the island. As we get into Sunday, though, it looks like some higher concentrations of that smoke will move in across the island. So we'll likely start to smell it again. And definitely see some reduced visibilities from that as well. Now things can change, but at this point, that's what it's looking like. Looks like there's a bit of haze out there in the upper levels currently in St. John's, but a beautiful evening. Cool though, only down to 7 degrees at the moment with those winds out of the north-northeast between 17 to about 31 kilometers per hour tonight. Still a beautiful evening though. Burgeo 20 degrees still. 15 in Stephenville, and still a beautiful evening in Happy Valley Goose Bay, as well as Lab City. You're seeing around 18 degrees, but take a look at your temperatures tonight. They are going to drop like a rock in Lab City down to 0 degrees tonight. Quite a significant drop in temperatures. Otherwise, around 8 or 9 degrees for most of the Big Land, but we do have that frost advisory in place across the island, west coast through central, including eastern Newfoundland as well. We're looking at those overnight lows somewhere between 3 and 6 degrees, but those low-lying areas is where we're going to see the most of that cooler air. So if you do still have some frost-sensitive plants, you're certainly going to want to bundle those up. As we head into tomorrow, not a whole lot, maybe just some increasing cloud up across portions of Labrador and then the west coast. So generally a mix of sun and cloud through the day. We're looking at those temperatures again. Pretty lovely through the day, generally into the teens, about 18 or 19 degrees. A little cooler along the south coast of the island. Winds generally out of the west around 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. Then for Labrador, you're looking at temperatures low to mid-teens for the coast and mid to upper teens for central and western portions of Labrador. Long-range forecast into Saturday showing lots of sunshine through the day. Temperatures again 15 to 19 degrees across the board. A little cooler for northern portions of Nain, but then it looks a bit more unsettled certainly as we head into Sunday. We're not going to see that rain in the long-range forecast until we get into Monday for eastern Newfoundland, but we are looking at that drop in temperatures as well. Somewhere between 12 to 14 degrees as you get into Monday, Tuesday timeframe. We're looking at a similar drop in temperatures for central and western Newfoundland as well. You may see some showers move in late day for central, but other than that, just some more cloudy periods really. And then for eastern Labrador, you're looking at your drop in temperatures by the time we get into Monday down to the single digits, return of some showers on Tuesday. And for western Labrador, you're looking at your temperatures between 10 and about 15 degrees. So we're going to do things a little differently tonight. We're going to show you the weather picture when I come back in a little bit.
That's what I bring to this leadership. I have that ability to work with teams. I've been a team player all my life. I've worked with teams all my life. I'm as comfortable in the boardroom as I am on the basketball court.
Well, more from PC leadership hopeful Tony Wakeham, from basketball to budgets, coming up.
Org.
Well, Canada Post delivered a $50,000 grant to the First Light St. John's Friendship Centre this morning. It's the Indigenous Truth and Reconciliation Signature Grant, and First Light says the money is most welcome.
The grant recognizes local organizations that offer programming supporting youth across Canada anchored in the principles of truth and reconciliation. So it's my privilege and honor to present this year's Indigenous Truth and Reconciliation Signature Grant to First Light St. John's Friendship Centre. Well, it shows our commitment to the communities that we serve and that we're represented in across Canada. By doing this, we make a big impact to these communities and help offer services that probably weren't able to, or expand on services that are already in service now.
This guy is so important to us.
We're going to be using the generous grant from the Canada Post Community Foundation to help advance truth and reconciliation in St. John's. That includes promoting the 42 calls for change among youth in particular. Especially important at this time of year in advance of Orange Shirt Day, which is, of course, an opportunity to honor and support survivors of residential schools. There are many lingering effects as a result of residential schools and ongoing systemic discrimination against Indigenous peoples in a variety of different areas. Orange Shirt Day is an opportunity for everyone to come together to help support and advance truth and reconciliation in St. John's and across the province.
An abuse survivor believes people are still at risk of harm at the hands of the Catholic Church. As we reported yesterday, Gemma Hickey has made a 6-day pilgrimage to the Vatican along with other survivors from Canada and the United States. They're calling on the Roman Catholic Church to stop shuffling abusive priests around to bring in laws that would ensure abusers aren't moved to other positions in other churches. Here's more of Hickey's conversation with our CBC colleagues in Rome.
So we're here, we just completed a pilgrimage to bring a message to Pope Francis to sign into law, into church law, a universal church law that will have a zero tolerance policy when it comes to shuffling predator priests from one place to the next and holding bishops and cardinals that have protected them to account. I've seen the agenda of the Synod, and clergy sexual abuse isn't on the agenda. And since the Papal Summit on Clergy Sexual Abuse, really much hasn't been done. So we remain hopeful because we're hoping and pushing for change, but we haven't seen anything yet. So I'm hoping that because of the pilgrimage, our commitment to the cause, of course the pilgrimage was mentally, physically, emotionally challenging, bringing this message to the Pope in Rome that they will pay attention to us because we're not going to stop. Not today, not tomorrow, not any time, because this issue is so important. People are still at risk, and we want this harm to end. We were walking for about 6 days straight, so we covered roughly 130 kilometers. Got bandages on our feet, blisters, chafing, you name it, we've been through it. There were some really, really challenging paths there with terrain, thick brush. The heat, of course, was not easy, and we were in the middle of storm season, so we had a number of thunder showers to walk through and overcast and wind, but it was quite the adventure, and it didn't deter us at all. We just stayed the course, and here we are in Rome now to continue our efforts. We've got events happening all week long. One of the most important ones, of course, is a vigil to honor the survivors who are no longer with us. I'm a clergy abuse survivor myself from St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, and Newfoundland and Labrador is ground zero when it comes to this type of abuse because when allegations surfaced back home, they surfaced all over the world. And so everyone here, no matter where I go in the world, knows the name Mount Cashel. We've come here together. There was about 10 of us, allies and survivors, in a shared communion of pain And we walked through that. And of course, there were moments on the trail where we had some joy, but we relive our trauma every day. It doesn't go away. Whereas many of our abusers get to retire or they don't even get to face any criminal charges. But we, survivors, live in a prison of memory. We're the ones that are serving a life sentence, and we have to work through that. So walking is very meditative. I did a walk across Newfoundland and Labrador back in July 2015 for the same cause, and I got the idea for the pilgrimage back then. I was waiting for the right time to do it, and of course when I saw that there was no clergy sexual abuse on the agenda at the Synod, then we wanted to make sure that we sent to the Pope our revisions to canon law that would ensure a zero tolerance policy. Now, we did get word that he received it. Let's wait and see if he signs it.
Well, over the past week, we've been bringing you profiles of the three men running for the leader of the province's Progressive Conservatives. To get to know them and find out what they want to accomplish should they become leader of the party, tonight is the last of those profiles with leadership candidate Tony Wakeham. Here's his conversation with CBC's Peter Cowan.
Well, politics is often described as a team sport, and we're here on the court with Tony Wakeham, who's running for the PC leadership. I want to ask you, basketball, how big of a role has it played in your life?
A very significant role, Peter. I've been involved in sport my entire life, and basketball was the sport that I chose. And I've been involved with it since I was a player in high school, and then went on to play here at the university as a player, and then from there turned around and had the opportunity actually to represent the province at national competitions. And after my playing days were done, of course, I started coaching. And then when my job took me outside of St. John's, because I moved around a lot in the province, I got involved in the administrative side. So I found myself being the head of the local basketball association and ultimately the president of Canada Basketball for a number of years. But all of that experience gives you the concept of team building and teamwork and what it means to be able to form teams. And that's what I bring to this leadership. I have that ability to work with teams. I've been a team player all my life. I've worked with teams all my life. I'm as comfortable in the boardroom as I am on the basketball court. And that's the reason I think sports play such an integral part in people's lives. It's not just about the physical activity, but it's about your mental health and your physical health.
Sticking with the sports analogy, the last time you went head-to-head for the leadership, you weren't able to take home the trophy. You came second. What have you learned since then, and how have you changed since the last time you ran?
Well, I think the last time I ran, I was extremely new to politics. I did not have a seat in the House of Assembly. I had not been involved in politics before, and I entered the race late. And to this day, people have told me, had I had a few more weeks, I probably would have won. So this time we got out early, and one of the key things is getting a great team around me. And that was, again, one of the things that I've been able to do. I've been able to attract people who have lots of political experience. I've got people around me who have no political experience.
The other thing I want to ask you about is a bit about your background in healthcare. Give me an idea. What was your involvement? What are some of the roles that you had within the healthcare system?
Well, I started off actually in the Department of Health at the time when we actually had what they called a hospital services division. And it was interesting because back then we would be involved in going out to all of the hospitals across the province of Newfoundland and Labrador and doing what we call base staff level reviews. So we were constantly reviewing staffing levels and service needs and all of those things. Nowadays, perhaps if we had to have some of that a few years ago and have those things done, maybe we wouldn't have found ourselves as desperate for staff as we are now. So from there I wound up moving to Clarenville, and I worked at the hospital in Clarenville as an assistant executive director in finance and administration. I found myself back in St. John's and ultimately again wound up in the Department of Health as an assistant deputy minister responsible for regional health authorities. So again, traveling all over the province, getting to know people, and it was there that the job came up in Labrador Grenfell as their president and CEO. I applied for the job and I was successful in getting it. And I signed a 2-year contract and wound up staying for 5. And as you know, when you go to Labrador, sometimes it brings out that emotion. It's a beautiful place to live and work, and you get very attached to it.
Okay, now that we've gotten to know a little bit about who you are as a person, I want to talk about some of the politics and policies. And healthcare is obviously a big issue for a lot of people in the province. It's also been a big part of your career. So give me an idea. What are 2 changes that you would make in healthcare that you think could have the biggest impact on some of the challenges that we're seeing today?
If you start thinking about what can we do right now, today, that would help people, a couple of things that I've outlined so far in my platform is one, the focusing on retention. We have seen a significant number of our nurses, for example, leave permanent full-time jobs to take jobs with agencies. And so why did that happen? You know, those are things that we need to dig into. We need to be talking to people about those type of things.
But isn't government already addressing that? There's a new contract that pays them more. There's bonuses if you go full-time. If you're an experienced nurse, there's bonuses on top of that.
They are attempting to do that. But and that's part of the solution, no doubt. But the other part of that is a retention part for the people that are currently enrolled in our systems. And I have suggested to government that right now, any student who is enrolled in a program, a healthcare program that we have a need for in this province, whether it's in a college or a university, they should be offered a full-time job as they enter the program, not as they exit the program. The other one that I've talked about a lot, and you'll be familiar with this from your time in Labrador, is medical transportation, because that is a critical piece when it comes to people being able to access health care in our province. There are too many stories of people choosing or wondering whether they can afford to go to a medical appointment. And I don't think anyone in this province should avoid or be able to not afford to go to a medical appointment to see a specialist. I think that program needs to be 100% funded, and people need to understand that. So if you've got to go for cancer care or you've got to travel outside your district, the last thing you need to worry about is whether you can afford to go.
Speaking of helping people, cost of living is on a lot of people's minds. What do you think the provincial government could be or should be doing in order to address the struggles that people have had dealing with everything from housing to food to, energy affordability?
Number one, let's start eliminating taxes that hurt people. Sugar tax, it's collected $11 million, but there's no evidence that it's improving people's health. There's not one mention in the entire healthcare document that we should implement a sugar tax to make people healthier. That needs to go. The fight against carbon tax. The Liberal government here in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador introduced carbon tax to this province. They didn't fight it right from the beginning. They're now talking about they don't support it, but they introduced it and then they doubled down and actually voted to increase it. That has had a significant impact on the cost of living in this province and contributed to inflation.
But even if you were Premier tomorrow, you couldn't stop that tax. It's a federal tax. The federal government's put it in place. And
we cannot stop the tax, but we will not stop arguing and fighting to have it removed, because that's the role of the government to do that and continue to bring that forward. On a measurable side of things, there are things the government has done. For example, we currently have a reduction in our gas tax. We need to continue on with that. That's scheduled to come off. We know that other increases that government could do. I've talked about the idea that we need a new program in place to talk about how do we deal with people on incomes and review all of our programs and services. So let's make sure that our programs designed to help people like income support and others are actually working. Are they actually doing what they were set to do up? I've called for a complete review of all our fees and taxes so that we start to look at why are we collecting these fees? What are we doing? How can we make adjustments? All of those things at the end of the day will help people. A new poverty reduction strategy. We had a poverty reduction strategy in this province that was considered one of the best in the country. The Liberal government abandoned it. It's time to go back to a new poverty reduction strategy. Perhaps we can talk about how we index seniors' benefits. These are just some of the things that we need to be doing and looking at and how we can help people immediately.
Well, thanks so much for coming in. Good luck in the race.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, a tiny diorama got a big addition this week. A handmade Terry Fox figurine has been added to the Little Canada attraction in Toronto. Brother Fred Fox was there to place his brother on the map right along the water at St. John's Harbour. Fox said Newfoundland played a very important part in Terry's Marathon of Hope. It's where Terry began his run more than 40 years ago, back in April of 1980. And now the legacy continues in nearly 10,000 schools across the country. Little Canada is a unique attraction filled with miniature figurines that celebrate important moments and people from coast to coast. Yeah, that is such an interesting attraction. I've never seen it in person or anything.
No, I didn't even know it existed. That's really cool. I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah, I would like to see that. I love little things like little figurines.
There are a lot of people who are interested in that. That's for
sure. Okay, so we had such a full show tonight. Not a whole lot happening with the weather except for the return of the smoke that we're expecting, right?
Which we will see over the next couple of days, come and go, really. But yeah, it was a calm morning, a little hazy sky today as well for areas here, especially in the province. Let's take a look at your weather photo today. Hazy morning in Kitty Vitty. Chris captured the shot. He says it was one of the nicest mornings he's seen in a long time. So he was very happy about it. And what a lovely shot there too. Thank you so much.
That is beautiful. Yeah, it's a lot of really nice weather. We've been very fortunate with the string of nice weather that we've been having.
And it will continue. And if you want to send any photos, you can send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Yeah, and a decent weekend coming for most people, right?
That's right. Hopefully the smoke doesn't hamper it too much, but at this point, that's all we can do.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for us on this Thursday evening. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good night.